Yo, it's the last month of 2020. It starts here. What's going on, my people? Thank you for being here. I am the Marksman, happy to be your host. This is X Marks the Black Podcast, and we have another fun-filled episode for you today. We're going to get real nerdy. We're going to talk a little politics. We're going to make sure we are a well-rounded podcast. How y'all doing out there, yo? How y'all feel? I'd like to announce I took a COVID test this week. Negative results. All right. Gonna make sure we stay that way. I hope y'all are getting tested out there. Make it a part of your life. That's where we at right now. X. Now, my girl Zoe Kravitz turned 32 this week. Shouts to her. She is Selena Kyle. She's the new Catwoman in Matt Reeves' The Batman. That's coming up, starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne / The Bat. That's slated for March 4th, 2022. Looks like a very interesting and different version of Batman. I'll offer more details as they come. What else in quick news? Dave Chappelle. He said, don't watch the Chappelle show, y'all, until they pay him. Don't try to play my man Dave. Pay him. What else? He-Man, Masters of the Universe is coming to Netflix. They released the art, looks pretty dope. Star-studded cast. Alicia Silverstone, among others. It looks like an updated version of the 80s cartoons. Cool. No trailer yet, but I'll keep y'all updated on that. How y'all doing today, yo? Like I said in the intro, this is the last month of 2020. Oh my goodness. What a year. Oof. But we're going to move forward, and we are going to convert that energy into some insanely positive ventures and projects. And all my creatives, we're going to make sure we network with each other and help each other out. All my black creatives especially. We're going to support each other a lot more. And we're going to make sure we get to the promised land together. Because if there's anything we did learn this year in 2020, is that we are in this together. So let's make some noise for that. Okay. Well, let's get to the show. X Marks the Black Podcast. What has been happening lately? This week, streaming wars is just an ongoing series. There's always something going on in the streaming world. And this week is no different, y'all. Warner Brothers this week announced that for the entire year of 2021, they're releasing their entire movie slate in the theaters and HBO Max at the same damn time. Watch home or the movies at the same damn time. Max and IMAX at the same damn time. Home in my pajamas at the same damn time. Hollywood is about to lose their mind. Homer in the movies at the same damn time. Watch the streams, improve my grind. Marksman, it's a movie at the same damn time. All right. But yeah, they announced this week that they will be releasing all the Warner Brothers films on HBO Max and the theaters, simultaneously giving the public an option to choose. I don't know, guys. I know the theaters are upset. But let me rewind. Let me bring it to a full stop so we could add some context. This summer, I had a debate with my brother about Marvel's Black Widow movie. Scarlett Johansson. We know it's a prequel. Of course, she's dead. So we're getting that soon. We don't know how. But back in the summer, when we kind of thought the virus would be wrapped up by now, Disney Plus had launched and they ran out of content quickly. Productions were shut down. They ran out of content relatively quickly. Nerds are a ferocious bunch. But my brother was like, hey, they should put Black Widow on Disney Plus. They'll get a lot of subscribers. People are already quarantined. Sounds like a reasonable argument, right? I mean, makes sense. But I remember I responded in my I know about movies tone, and I was like, yeah, no. Disney would never do that in a million years. They make like billion-dollar movies. They're not going to settle for this little streaming money. They're two different universes. My brother's like, are you sure? I mean, his perspective was that no one's going to the movies. This was back in the summer, but he was thinking long term. And I'm like, no, they'll wait it out. They'll wait it out, bro. Marvel Studios has an advantage other studios do not have. An established cinematic universe. Movies that serve as commercials for future movies. In other words, I'll put that in terms that a studio exec would understand. Money that serves as money for future money. That's how that works. Other studios would have to reintroduce their film to the general public after a pandemic, let's say. If, let's say, everything reopened next week, all those movies that were set to release would have to now pour more money into marketing to go, hey, remember that movie that we told you about before? That's expensive. Marketing usually equates to the cost of the production. So you usually grab the cost of the production, multiply it by 2. That's usually what they're spending on marketing. So to get that back, it's not that easy. Not that easy. At this point, studios have relationships with streaming services, so they just turn to that partner to be able to release the content, and if they can't find a streaming service to release it, they'll sell it to Netflix. Netflix likes anything. And Netflix, they're the hippies of the streaming services, They see content and they see the good in everything. They're like, nah, this is good. This is good stuff. I like this. This is good. This has an audience. This has an audience. And we're raising our prices this month. Bye. Yo, don't forget Netflix. Netflix and chill for the holidays for $17.99. As if Netflix and chill wasn't real enough. $17.99. And it don't come with no biscuits, no sides, just $17.99. That's $20. $17.99 is $18, which is $20. Give me $20. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to just take the snapshot of where we are in life. We're paying $20 a month for a streaming service. Just let that sink in, people. And if you're using someone's login, I really hope that at some point in your life, you are sharing a login with somebody else. I hope you're not that person. And no, don't ask me. Don't ask me. I'm good. I'm just making social commentary. This is X Marks the Black podcast. So the point is with the Black Widow thing is that I may be wrong. It hasn't been announced yet, but if/when you see Black Widow advertised on Disney Plus for streaming, somewhere, wherever I am, a single tear is falling down my face. Because if Disney is willing to lose that money, please know they had no other option. And I don't think that's good. I can only hope that we can return to some sort of normalcy in a matter of years, maybe? Can we get back to the olden days? But then these theaters who haven't survived, it's hard to restructure after such major shifts. But studios, they're going to go where the money is. I personally think they have more money to make with the theaters intact. The more theaters, the more butts and seats. But of course, we have a public health issue we're dealing with. Right. So there are a lot of factors to involve. Can't be selfish. And can the movie experience survive a public health crisis? That's really what it comes down to. But if you simply cut the budgets to the films, right, you can continue to offer both a home and theatrical option. It's going to affect the budget. There's no way they're going to spend all this money on a film and it's playing in your crib and they're thinking about streaming. They're not going to do it. They're not. And I'm all about the quality, people. And I want to know how you feel about this. Hit me up, marksman.com, Instagram, Twitter. Hit me up. Let me know how you feel. Because I am curious to know how the general public feels about this. Am I the only one bugging? This may be our new future, people. I don't know. X Marks the Black podcast. Let's make some noise. So, if you're following this podcast, you know the deal. I was talking about movie theaters in the first couple episodes, and, they can't be happy with this decision, the theaters. We're so comfortable at home as it is. HBO announcing the whole entire Warner Brothers slate. You will have an option to either go or come. Come and go. I mean, not going outside is really not that serious, right? I mean, if you wasn't a homebody before, you is a homebody now. So theaters are already competing with the comfort of your home. They're competing with your Snuggie. They're competing with your fleece sweatshirt that just keeps you warm, and you have your snacks, you got your family. I mean, there's just a lot that theaters have going against it in a public health crisis. You're weighing pros and cons, especially if you have a family. I don't have any kids, but you have others to account for as far as health, as far as being responsible. Theaters they're not going to like this. They're not going to like this. Now, Warner Brothers, through HBO Max, set a dangerous tone that Disney's already doing. Disney's already realigning their projects. They're focusing on Disney Plus. We know this. They didn't make a formal announcement that they're just pushing their entire slate to Disney Plus. But they don't really have to. We'll see what happens. But if they don't do it 100% the way that Warner Brothers is doing it, it's going to be a good amount. It's going to be a good amount that's going to end up on streaming. I mean, the theaters will say that the studios are being selfish. The general public doesn't care generally. About quality, they just want to be entertained. I mean, the percentage of us that view films on a deeper level, this will affect the movies that we will see moving forward. I can definitely feel that. And I was so excited for the streaming renaissance, but y'all gonna take my movies. It's just 2020 has been a lot about giving and taking. For real. Learned a lot about taking advantage of different opportunities. However, the cost, oh my goodness, the cost. 2021, let's go. But there's a vaccine out there somewhere. You know, theaters will open up slowly. President Obama, Clinton, Bush, Jr., they're all willing to get vaccinated on Instagram Live just to make you more comfortable. Nah, but we'll see what happens. Maybe another year. We'll see. But do you agree with HBO? Are you happy that you could just stay home and not go to the movies? Or do you see the long-term effects? I set up a poll on my Instagram page. Follow me at The Marksman, TheMarxman. And the poll basically simply asked, do you miss the theaters? Is that an experience that you missed? About 80% said yes. And about 20% said no. So that was interesting. I want to know how you feel. How do you feel about these theaters? Are these changes bothering you? Is it just like another day, another industry? You're happy at home. You got the Samsung that curves a little bit, so you chilling, you feeling yourself. All right, it's all good. I'm just curious because I miss the theaters, but we'll see. This summer was exceptional, and we had a lot of other things to worry about. The world was burning. Out here protesting. So, yeah, this summer we were a little distracted, but I'm thinking more long-term as things get back to quote-unquote normal. There are things that we're going to miss, and I believe theaters are going to be among them, But that's cool. Enough about that. But still with HBO, last week, I posted my episode on Friday, right? And then the Fresh Prince reunion had come on like right around then, and I wasn't able to catch it right in time. And that's my mistake. But I wanted to bring up something that stood out to me. The general reunion was a lot more emotional than I expected. The cast assembled for just a look. It was just one of television's most successful sitcoms that happened to have a black cast and, executive producer Quincy Jones. Will Smith, he talks about how he got the part. Everything from the story behind Jazz getting thrown out the house to Tatiana Ali's first kiss on set. But the story within the story, the scandal of the show revolved around the first Aunt Vivian, Janet Louise Herbert. Now, we all saw this play out in real time because we all watched the show. After her 72 episodes, they never spoke of her again, as if she never even existed. Until a series of events led her to speak up. Now, this starts with a young black woman by the name of April Reign. Give it up for April. April is a cultural expert, and she was at the 2015 Oscars, and she tweeted something that would shake Hollywood and shine a bright light on issues of diversity and inclusion forever. So the next year, this hashtag had gotten so popular and accumulated so much attention and started so many conversations that the next year was the Oscars So White Oscars. They purposely selected Chris Rock to host, and his opening set was surgically precise. It kept everyone just the right amount of uncomfortable. He was like, when your grandmother's swinging from a tree, it's really hard to care about best documentary foreign short. That was a chain of events started by April Reign. And that movement really led to some real changes. So in 2016, that's when Miss Hubert hit the YouTube video telling off Jada for asking other actors to boycott the Oscars. She was giving Jada a piece of her mind, and you could tell that she had a lot of issues behind it. Of course, Jada was upset that Will Smith didn't get nominated. He was in concussion that year. Hubert went in on him, telling them that they're the same Hollywood problem. They have their own production company, that they only mess with each other. She was going in. And if you had heard at all that she was fired for being difficult, and then on top of that, you saw this video, like me, all of those thoughts and feelings rose right to the top the second I saw it. I saw her as that difficult one who got fired from the Fresh Prince. And a lot of it is because they never spoke about her. And we know if you never speak about something, an actor to leave or a situation like that, if you don't speak of it, it was probably pretty bad. Right? I mean, professionalism will mean that you'll say something good or nothing at all. So that was my impression. I remember watching that video, believing in my heart that she was bitter because, this and that. And I definitely judged without knowing the full story. So watching this was very, very interesting. I feel like I owe her an apology. Now, stories of her being difficult to work with, it tends to resurface. And Will apologized. He was young. You could tell he kept bringing up how much life experience he had gained since then. So you can tell he was kind of leaning into the fact that he was young. I'm sure he was arrogant and he's a star. And as far as Janet was concerned, he didn't seem to care that she was let go. He didn't seem to care. Maybe he got that over time, but then he did not seem to care. And it apparently really did a lot for her life, in a negative way. She mentioned going through a lot of issues. So I really hope we can get something out of this. She's here, she was replaced by, she's here 1 minute. And next thing you know, she's replaced by, Miss Daphne Maxwell Reid, who's noticeably light-skinned. They might not have seen what they were doing, but without any words, they contributed to a larger issue of colorism. Miss Janet Hubert gave us a strong Aunt Viv she would take off her earrings and fight you, or she could kill a dance because she was trained. She was no joke. But the quick switch was a silent confirmation of what we as a society accept as better, as new and improved. And I don't say that in the direction of the second Aunt Vivian. Miss Daphne Maxwell Reid is an actress doing her job who interestingly enough said she had never met Miss Hubert before, which was interesting. But it makes sense. I mean, they're literally doing a job. But by labeling a black woman difficult is exactly what she said. She referred to it as the curse. Now, I'm not saying they purposely casted a replacement with lighter skin, but that's what happened. And you put all those elements together and it blends into what we become to normalize over time. So now that we all can reflect on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air 30 years later, we can bring these issues to the forefront. Black women being difficult that verbiage becomes code, and that allows racism to be vocalized. So we hear you, Black woman, and we hear you, Aunt Viv. X marks the Black podcast. Now let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to get a little political. Now, you know, I attended both of Obama's inaugurations. In fact, I was part of a team that organized bus trips for our peeps to get away, to travel and stay in D.C., since, of course, every Black person wanted to be present for this inauguration. Long story short, something happened. The demand was so crazy, I can assume that was the root of it. We lost our reservation, right? I'm talking dozens of people. Some lodging facility in D.C. turned into some spot out in Virginia, a good several miles away. It was a good whiles away. We had already collected money or started collecting money, and all of a sudden we had nowhere to stay. And then we recovered and found a spot that was a good ways from the action. A good ways from the action. Now, this is Black Jesus ascending in DC, and we're like almost an hour away on a bus. Now, it was my job to call people and give them this bad news. Why did I have to be so good with words? But that experience was once in a lifetime. Well, kind of once in a lifetime. I mean, he won again, and we went again 4 years later. But the first one, you really saw America in an interesting way. And we were definitely in a little dream state. We felt we overcome in a way. I don't think we were naive enough to think that we didn't think racism was over. Generally, we weren't that crazy, but we did see America as being a country that had crossed some sort of threshold. And I do not believe at that moment we would have accepted the pendulum swinging so far in the other direction. And I started paying attention to Fox News because there was just so much loud hatred coming from this news channel that it was entertaining at first. But then it didn't take too long to go, wait, this is not good. They're not being honest. And they will go to any depth to make a point. And their points are almost always meant to scare the audience. Now, please tell me what can be scarier to these people than a Black president. But they did it. Pay attention to him. That pendulum swung left for a couple of terms and then swung so right, our country will never be the same. Donald Trump became the mouthpiece for the part of white America that feels threatened by racial equality. Or frankly, Black Lives Mattering. For that matter. I mean, he wears his entitlement like armor. And because he's bold enough to lie the way he does, I mean, we're more divided than ever. But we know Fox held Trump down. They lied for him. They relayed his messages. They softened his words. They hid his words. They forgot his words when convenient. He had a media machine that he could use to discredit the rest. Now, these days, he's not happy with Fox. And it's causing all sorts of hilarious issues. I mean, first of all, how do you fall for him calling this a rigged election when he was making this excuse so long ago? If he was so concerned, smart people, why didn't he focus on strengthening the voter process? Why are we hearing about all of these voting issues now? If he was saying it the whole time. He hired his homeboy to be the postmaster to gut the entire system. Did you not pay attention to that? But hey, his people believe him. But a lot of these things end up backfiring when you're dishonest. And now he's in a place where the local Republicans, these local elections are being affected because they're afraid to vote. He talked all this mess about voting, and now we still need a democracy, but his agenda isn't at the forefront, so he doesn't care. So he's someone who will destroy the Republican Party and move on. The sad part is that most of the Republican Party are afraid of him and or the constituents that support him. So we're going to see just a lot of bending over. Voter suppression is a Republican tactic. Understand, and this has been the general idea, that if Democrats vote, if they're registered and they vote in full numbers, they will win every election. All Democrats have to do is vote. Vote, 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 vote. Voter registration, voter registration. You hear that constantly. On the right side, because of their role and their firm grip in white supremacy, their game becomes voter suppression, which is criminal, people. It undermines the very democracy we're preaching about. But as soon as black people started to vote, voter suppression became the single most way to keep our voices quiet and to keep our engagement low. Making registration as difficult as possible. Limiting the poll stations and making sure that any tidbit of bureaucracy is used to discourage and make the process just as tedious and painful as possible. So people eventually give up. Trump loses the election. Keep in mind, this happened a month ago. We were dancing in the streets a month now. He gets furious at Fox News for reporting the Biden victory. And then he continues to solicit millions of dollars in money for supporters from donors, blows it on recounts. I think it cost $3 million about a state to recount. They're recounting states. I think they recounted Wisconsin. Joe Biden won 87 more votes than he did last time. He's over here losing multiple times, but he doesn't care about that. Trump wants to be seen as the victim. That enables his supporters to hold on tighter. That is his way. That's his tactic. And there's blood in the water. We have a part of the population who strongly believes in massive voter fraud. Systemic voter fraud. They don't believe in systemic racism, but they do believe in systemic voter fraud. Isn't that great? All right. I'm going to shout out another black woman, Stacy Abrams. 2 out of the 3 black women I'm going to shout out today. She She ran for governor 2018 against Brian Kemp. Now, Brian Kemp was already in power, and he used all his power to suppress the vote in Georgia, all them black people. So what did Stacy do? Stacy started creating an infrastructure to educate and inform her community and make sure those communities informed other communities, and started a network, voter registrations, to make sure that Georgians were voting. She loses the election, but does she pack up and leave after she lost the election? No. She created the network for the election. But because she saw the future, she saw the bigger picture, she had more time on her hands even to really rock the vote. And in this past election, pretty much handed Joe Biden Georgia on a plate. Joe Biden was the first Democratic president to win Georgia in 28 years. No easy feat. Stacy Abrams had a lot to do with that. Make some noise for Stacy Abrams. I'm talking, they're out here purging the voter rolls, just making sure they're just scraping every name off that they possibly could. Even if you, let's say you didn't vote one year and you went to vote the next year, it's very likely they took your name out the system just to make it harder for you to get back in. If there's a slight digit off, if your signatures weren't matching, which we know how that goes. Our signature changes every few years. They had an exact match policy. So if there was anything off, they could just reject it. Or they'll just downright limit the polling stations. Just make you travel longer. Just make you stand in longer lines. No matter if you're elderly or not. That's voter suppression. And that's not something done on the Democratic side. That's definitely a Republican thing. It's not democratic. It's not American. Your word. So we're in an interesting place now. Because once again, we have a president who's on his way out, is going to do as much damage as he can. But I don't want you to miss the point of why Donald Trump is flailing around like this. It's very, very important you pay attention to this man now and for the next couple of years. I mean, he's gotten away with everything. Yes, all his life. He even won the presidency on his first try without even wanting the job. He did that. He looks mighty invincible. You know, my man even had COVID. He shrugged through an impeachment, just called it a fake impeachment. Homies getting arrested left and right. You know, it really seems that he is above the law. And who are we kidding? You know, Donald Trump abuses privilege. You know, he is what it looks like to really soak up white privilege and just sprinkle that orange powder all over it. I don't know, his face. But no, the founding fathers of this country, what I do know about them and their intentions for the young country, I can guarantee you they never thought we would be so foolish as to elect someone blatantly dishonest and corrupt to the highest office of the land. I don't think they did. I mean, the presidency is wrapped up in so much constitutional protection. Trump was able to take full advantage with no immediate consequences. He had the House, the Senate, the DOJ at his fingertips for his entire term. But Donald Trump made a fatal mistake, and I believe it will result in the slow and entertaining exposure of the truth oozing out over the next several years. I mean, he actually became president. Now, one thing I never thought he, or the Republican Party for that matter, seemed to realize since he took office, is that there will be life after this. No term is forever. I don't know what kind of memory y'all think we got, but we were definitely around for the last 4 years. The Republicans have shown absolute weakness, just allowing Trump to do whatever he wanted. And they're afraid of their people. But every term has an end. He's a one-term president in the middle of a global pandemic, you know, but he is kicking and screaming for a reason. And it's not because he has plans to run in 2024. You know, he hated it, but being president was the best branding he's ever done. So he'll continue to talk about running because it's the most lucrative move that keeps politicians and people just afraid of him or in awe of him. He'll take either, but he's been exposed. I truly don't think he took into account what his life would be like after the presidency. I don't think he did. I'm sure he's feeling it now, but based on the momentum of his life, he figured he would just find a way to remain powerful post-presidency. Over the last few months, it's catching up to him, I believe, that there's a reality happening. They're talking about preemptively pardoning members of his family. Why are you saying these things? Giuliani farted in a hearing, by the way. That happened. Just to add to the insanity. But yeah, not only have you been consistently pissing people off for the last 4 years, but Trump has cases. I mean, he got Stormy Daniels issues. He got Michael Cohen issues. You know, New York is coming for him. So he will see his day. He will see his day. He's still a rich white man, so he will still get away with a lot. But I believe that he has done enough dirt that something will stick. I believe. I will see. Pay close attention. We're going to follow the news on the podcast. But this particular episode, I was able to shout out some amazing human beings, some amazing women. So I want to make sure I give them their just due before I exit. Once again, shout out to April Rain. She started the Oscars So White hashtag. We have to give a shout out to Stacy Abrams. Stacy Abrams empowered her community by teaching them to empower themselves through participation, through voter participation. That is key. That is key. Shout out to Miss Janet Hubert. Of course, 30 years later, we're able to revisit things we never even knew. But I hope we uplift our Black women more and do not dismiss with any kind of negative stereotypes and difficult stereotypes. Let's just make sure we honor and respect our women. And finally, last but not least, she serves a very important role, especially now. She is responsible for the case in New York that's overseeing. That's the reason why Donald Trump is not sleeping well at night. So we're going to uplift her and make sure that she knows that we're supporting her because she's fighting the fight. While Kamala's in the White House holding it down over there, we got to have Lady Justice out here in New York. So shout out, make some noise for Letitia James, who says she's going to make sure, justice is served. So we're going to hold her to that. I want to send a special shout out to everyone who's listening to this podcast. I definitely appreciate you participating in my little nerd project. We're having a good time so far. I hope we're breaking down these situations in ways that entertain you. If we are, let me know. I definitely appreciate your feedback. Send it to me via email, Twitter, Instagram. You can email me at themarksmanmusic@gmail.com. Or just hit up themarksman.com. You can contact me there. Instagram is The Marksman. Twitter is The Marksman. You could always reach out. I would love to hear from you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of X Marks the Black podcast. I will be back next week with some more nerd stuff, some more drama, some more news, some more knowledge, hopefully some bars. Let's get it poppin'. I am your boy, the Marksman. It starts here.